Welcome to our June 7th edition of goldenblack.com Saturday Simulcast. Brian Neubert, who is always the star of the show, will be on here shortly. We'll talk some Purdue basketball, a little basketball team camp, start of summer workouts for the Boilermakers, which begin on Monday. We'll hit that and other topics as well. And I want to thank the Union Club Hotel, Boiler Up Bar, 811 Bistro, the good folks there, Vicky Wicks and company have been a sponsor of ours since its inception back in 2020, and now the Boiler House Prime is the new jewel of their empire, so to speak, out at the Pete Dye Clubhouse, and a beautiful place to. As I said, for Brian and I, we need to go out there and have a good steak dinner. It'd be a good thing, but it's a great spot, and we appreciate all of their support. I'm going to bring Brian on, and he is down in Mackey Arena as we record, and is skillfully dealing with the mute button on his because there's a little bit of basketball noise in the background. But Brian, first of all, give me a little bit of an update on team camp this week. You've spent a couple of days in Mackey Arena and then some, and then of course you're with the Junior All-Stars this week, and a lot going on there too. But let's start with what's going on with team camp.
Yeah, so Purdue, So
no, you're good.
Purdue has 4 of these things. The first 2 days, we're small schools, so there weren't a whole lot of, prominent players there, prominent teams there. But Friday was their first of the 2 really relevant camps. Next Friday will be the other. There's some guys here, some 26 players Purdue has to make decisions on. Noah Smith will be here next Friday. He's the forward from Plainfield.
Right.
Carry-on Berry's the wing from Avon that they've been looking at. They need to make a decision on him eventually, not right away, but at some point. There's a player, Dikembe God, I can't not say Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe Shaw, who just scored while I was talking about him, from Crown Point, who's a guy who plays with Luke Ertel in AAU, so Purdue's got some baseline familiarity with him. He was really good in that Junior All-Star game. I think he's a guy high majors are going to be watching here this summer. Purdue's going to take a look at him. I don't know if he's going to be an offer guy at any point, but I think he's a guy they're watching. So that's who they've kind of had here on Thursday. Jason Gardner Jr., Cooper Zachary from Fishers were here on Thursday. I know we're broadcasting this on – I don't know what day it is. I know we're broadcasting this on Saturday. I'm recording it on Friday. But I think it's Thursday, so just kind of ignore me when I get things wrong. But Cooper Zachary and Jason Gardner Jr. from Fishers were here on Friday. 2 guys Purdue is actively recruiting. Sean Foster's a little guard from Lima, Ohio, who, as I'm speaking, does not have a Purdue offer. By the time you stop recording this, he might have an offer for all I know. He's a pretty good player. Next weekend is loaded. Isaiah Hill from Pike will be here, their top 2027 target, one of them at least. Luke Ertel would have been here, but he got invited to NBA camp, so he will not be here. Next Friday is really the loaded day, but there were a lot of players here on Friday, and a lot for Purdue to kind of process. So, June has become an increasingly important recruiting month because of team camps, because of the scholastic evaluation period now, which will occur later in the month. Purdue, here in a couple of days, will send its coaches down to NBA camp in Rock Hill. Trey Thompson will be down there. A bunch of their targets will be down there. And not really a dull moment in recruiting anymore in the summer. You go from the portal to the spring evaluation period, to the June stuff, to the July stuff. I guess August is now the dead period, or the quiet period. I'm using official NCAA terminology, which means it's not necessarily accurate. Coaches can take a breath in August.
Yeah.
I can't say dead period. I can't say quiet period, because those are different things than just coaches getting time off. So.
That time and it has changed. It used to be July was a little bit more of that. Now that's not late July, but it is what it is now. Jason Gardner, obviously a name Purdue, longtime Purdue fans know his, of course, his dad, Indianapolis product, a terrific player at the University of Arizona. Just to get a little bit about him in terms of just what kind of player he is, and I do remember his dad as well. Any similarities outside of the name, or what's he look like?
Well, Dad was really that consummate true point guard. I think Junior has become more of kind of like a slashing physical scoring guard. I compare him a little bit more to Jaden Ivey than I would to Braden Smith. He's not a great shooter at this stage of his career. He's obviously very young still, but he's got a great body. He really knows how to play. He really knows how to get to the basket. He can finish acrobatically, things like that. He probably slots into being a point guard at the next level, but probably as more of a lead guard, scoring guard type point guard. Purdue offered him a long time ago. It's a very important position for Purdue in that 2027 class. You've got Omer Meyer. I hope I'm pronouncing that first name correctly. Everybody says it different, so I'm going with Omer Meyer because that's what somebody told me right away.
You're going with Meyer and not Mayer.
I'm going to say it different every time I say it.
Okay,
So.
all right. He's now number 17, not number 47, right? So
just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a really important position in that class. Purdue's offered a bunch of point guards in 2027. You've got Meyer coming in after Braden Smith. He could be a star in year 2 in the program, for all we know. But he's going to be an NBA guy, so you have to prepare for all outcomes there too. So I think it's important for Purdue to get a good point guard in 2027 to come in with Meyer, but then also to take over or have something ready to take over for him should he really blow up after Braden Smith and, be a short-term NBA guy. That's probably the best case scenario that I'm kind of articulating, but I think that's kind of that's sort of what Purdue has to be ready for here. They're on some really good point guards, Jackson Davis in Illinois, Kevin Savage in Atlanta land, as I'll call it. I think all three of those guys, Jason Gardner being the other, are all really good players. And, Purdue would be thrilled to death to get one of them.
How much is, this is probably a rhetorical, if not silly question, just Purdue's cachet and what it means now in recruiting. It's been this way for a while, but you've talked about that, written about the fact that it's not Purdue kind of knows no borders. Yes, they can still attract obviously Indiana talent and talent from anywhere, but is that what you continue to see in the Purdue sphere in terms of high school recruiting?
Yeah, I think that Purdue has, obviously gone national in a lot of ways. They have brought in players from a lot of different places.
Sure.
I think that was one of the positive developments that came from that downturn in the 2010s, where Purdue started really, really looking for a certain type of person, a certain type of player, and decided smartly that, we don't need to take every player we sign from the state of Indiana. That's always going to be Purdue's starting point. But if you can find something better, a better fit somewhere else, and the guys who really put a face on this were Vince Edwards and Dakota Mathias, because those were the two guys that really embodied the skill level, the basketball passion that, sort of was the direction Matt Painter wanted to move in after those couple of bad years. They got those guys. You saw what that meant to the program back then. I think Purdue will go anywhere and everywhere. They'll start in Indiana like they always have, but I think the days of them signing 4 or 5 man classes of all in-state kids are over. I don't know how feasible that is anymore anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just, Purdue has kind of become more of a national brand than they were maybe 10 years ago. Not that they were an afterthought to people back then, but I think Purdue's gotten cool too. And I think that especially plays to what we were just talking about, guards. there was a time not all that long ago when people would look at Purdue for 7-footers and 7-footers only, and people would use that against Purdue and say, if you're a guard and you go to Purdue, all you're going to do is throw the ball inside. Well, since coaches started saying that, Purdue's had Carson Edwards, Jaden Ivey, and Braden Smith.
Right. Huge difference.
A few other guys. But they've had more All-American guards now, I think, than big guys over the last decade or so. And I think Purdue's become a really good destination spot for guards as well. And, for as much as we talk about Brandon Brantley being a guy who does a really good job with big men and somebody Purdue can recruit to, I think PJ Thompson's going to be that guy for point guards. You have a point guard calling the offense. You have more of an NBA offense nowadays. You have a point guard who just kind of broke through here and changed you offensively. You have a head coach who has morphed from, grab and claw defensive guy to one of the best offensive coaches in college basketball. They're meeting with the Charlotte Hornets this week. The Hornets want to talk to them about offense. Purdue wants to talk to them about offense. And that's just what Purdue is now offensively. And I think that really that's really attractive to players nowadays, much more so than it was around Purdue years ago. So I think Purdue kind of has a lot going for it in recruiting in terms of the cases they can make to a lot of different players, the levels of players. I think Purdue has validated itself as a really, really high-level program. Here the last 5 years, you've been number one 3 times. You might be number one again for all we know here this year. You got to that Final Four. You've won Big Ten championships. You're on TV nationally all the time. I think the days of Purdue building that early relationship with kids in high school and then getting friend zoned at the last second when Kansas or UConn or Michigan State come in, I think those days are over. I think Purdue's good enough now for a lot of different types of players, a lot of different levels of player. And I think you're going to see that materialize more and more here as 2026, 2027, and on down the line, those recruiting cycles play out.
Alan Karpick here with Brian Neubert on our goldenblack.com Saturday simulcast. Start of summer workouts, I should say, on Monday for Purdue. And there's some guys that obviously aren't going to be here. Omer Mayer being one, and Daniel Jacobson. A couple injuries in there. Bring us up to speed.
Jacobson will be here.
He will be here
the first week, and then he leaves for Colorado Springs.
Okay, good to know. But tell us about in terms of Liam Murphy also has got some health issues. But what do you expect? If you're Matt Painter, what do you need to get out of this first set of workouts?
Yeah, let me add one more point to that recruiting topic we were just discussing.
By all means,
when Purdue recruits a kid for a bunch of years, builds a great relationship, but then somebody comes in late with money, which happened a lot over the years. It doesn't matter as much because if you come to Purdue, you're going to get paid well through revenue sharing. It's not cheating anymore. That is going to balance things out quite a bit too in Purdue's favor. It's going to be the knockout punch for that knockout punch. I can't believe I said that without completely tripping over all my words. Dikembe Shaw just made a 3.
All right.
Okay, so the topic of summer practice, now that I got the money thing out of the way.
All right, good.
So Omer Mayer will not be here. He is with Team Israel, or he has obligations with Team Israel in, obviously, Israel. Oscar Clough will not be here. He's in Australia. His visa has not expired, but they need it renewed to get him through the year. And apparently it's easier. This all got much more complicated in the last few months, the last few years, as you might imagine. It's easier to get a visa renewed when you're off U.S. soil than it is on U.S. soil. So they're going to let him stay in Australia, or have him stay in Australia until that gets all sorted out. And then he'll be here for good with no issues whatsoever with that visa. So he will not be here on day one. Daniel Jacobson, who's going to try out for the Team USA under-19 team, will be here for week one, but then he will leave and be absent for a couple weeks. Liam Murphy will be here, but he is still recovering from a shoulder injury, whatever it was, at his prior school. So he will be limited. He hurt, essentially. Raleigh Burgess, obviously, is out long-term. Will probably miss the whole summer after having leg surgery in the spring. So Purdue will have a bit of a skeleton crew, but your main guys, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Traycoff Moran, they will all be here. Your sophomores, C.J. Cox, Jakari Harris, they will be here. Jack Benner, coming out of redshirt, will be here. Antoine West will really be your only newcomer to the roster, I should say. So he will be here. He will get plenty of attention, I'd imagine. When you're the only freshman, you're the only newcomer, you're the guy that everybody's correcting all the time. So Antoine West will get the Carson Edwards treatment. Hopefully, for his sake, he will not handle it with the same level of frustration that Carson Edwards did when he was a freshman. Miles Colvin, too, to a certain extent. He was only freshman this time of year. But so Purdue will have a bit of a skeleton crew on day one and through the first week of practice, which is to say 2 days. And then, but there's still plenty of work to be done here. It would be great to have a full roster, but it's kind of the nature of summer where you've always got guys coming and going. When your program gets to a certain point, you get these international opportunities, which are, great. They're a reflection on where you've gotten as a program, the type of player you're bringing in, things like that, but it doesn't jibe well with continuity in the summer. Any coach in America, any coach anywhere would say we would much rather have our guys competing internationally than practicing on campus. I think that personally, I think these players get way more out of legitimately competing against other really high-level players off campus than they would running through, walkthrough of their offense on campus. So this is a good deal for Purdue that Omer Mayer is going to be playing great players internationally. Daniel Jacobson's going to be competing against great players domestically, then maybe competing against great players internationally, and so on and so forth. So this is a good problem to have. I wouldn't even call it a problem. I would just say it's kind of the reality of things. But summer is always disjointed. People recovering from surgeries, people coming and going, things like that. But it is important nonetheless. So Purdue will try to make the most of that every day here.
Yeah. Luke Ertel had an impressive performance in Greenfield this week, 36 points as the junior all-stars, as you said, put together a thrilling win over the seniors. How good is he, and what are you seeing from him? What's making him continue to I don't know if the word blow up, but just he's hyper competitive, as you've written about. But tell us about not only what you saw this week, but how he continues to shine.
Yeah, so he's just a good player. I mean, he's just a good basketball player. Really an elite competitor. That's what jumps out more than anything. He's going to be a great cultural guy for Purdue. He's going to be a great tone setter for Purdue. I think the basketball skill has really, really come to the forefront this year because I think his grassroots team lost a bunch of years-long guys that he could kind of blend in around the last few years, and he started having to assert himself more as a scorer, more as a playmaker. And as he's done that and really produced against really high-level players, I think his confidence is through the roof right now, and he's dominating people. And he just kind of has this will about him where, as an offensive player, he just decides what he wants to do and finds a way to get it done. He is creating his shot much better, I think, than he was last year. He's making them. I thought he was kind of like a piece, like a substance guy for Purdue when I first saw him, but he's really blown up as just a really good offensive player, really high-end scorer, a guy who can play point guard, a guy who can play two guard, a guy who can guard a lot of different positions, but also just being a kind of a will guy, an effort guy, the sort of player that Purdue's had in like Caleb Swanigan, Braden Smith, Chris Kramer, guys like that with a high basketball IQ too. It's almost like a Chris Kramer, PJ Thompson, Nigel Pack kind of mutation of a player here that I think was, probably kind of downplayed right away because he just looked like your typical Matt Painter, early commitment, scrappy guy. To use the racial terminology that we kind of code things with, but no, he's a really good player, and his rankings are starting to reflect it. And I think that illustrates a little bit of maturity in the rankings world. Not maturity, but understanding, and that they are valuing production more so than they are size, athleticism, speed, quickness, because those things, he is not necessarily the ideal prototype, but he's a competitor. He's extremely productive. Winning qualities is the word that Matt Painter would use. He's got them in abundance, and he's going to be a great fit at Purdue, and he's your classic Purdue guy, really.
Ranked 100 up to 101 by On3 is I think as of last week, and how much? I mean, is that? I know that always matters, but here's a guy that. I mean, does it matter less now? I mean, in terms of that, do you get more attention paid to that, less attention? How do you view that?
You mean rankings?
Yes.
I never put much stock in them anyway. We have to mention them in our stories. And I tend to mention them more in the context of here's what this guy's national profile is right now, and here's what that might mean for who's going to come after him. But no, I think Purdue has debunked, the importance of rankings, and a lot of other schools have over the years, 20 times over. So in terms of applying that to how a kid's going to fit into Purdue, see, we're kind of a little bit different in terms of the way we cover recruiting. I cover it in the context of how is he going to fit into Purdue. The rankings world, I think, tends to view it more as, is this guy going to be an NBA player? How good of a college player is this going to be? Generalizing what a college setup will be for that player. I view it all through the scope of what would this guy be at Purdue. And so my view on things is always a little bit different, but I don't know how much it matters, anymore. It's always nice for the kids. It's always nice notoriety for the schools that say it doesn't matter. Rankings don't matter, but then it's the first line in the press release when they sign these kids. So, that's probably football players more than basketball players. I don't think Purdue ballyhoos as much in basketball as some other people do. But, obviously I speak out of both sides of my mouth here. Rankings don't matter. We're in the industry of rankings, so I don't want to completely poo-poo it, but I also think that college coaches are putting less time into high school kids now than they used to be. So I think where the rankings can matter sometimes is they're not watching kids as underclassmen. So some of them, not Purdue. Purdue still does all its legwork. They're still recruiting 2028 players a year before they have to recruit them. But I think that the rankings are going to make for a lot of mistakes in recruiting because these coaches that, don't put the time in early the way they would have maybe 5 years ago are going to gravitate to them a little bit more when they realize, we probably ought to be recruiting these high school players. I'll give you a great example, like Trey Thompson. Purdue's on him a year ago.
Yeah.
That's him on the verge of committing a couple of times. Where's everybody else? Where is everybody else? And then all of a sudden, spring rolls around. There's some buzz around this kid. Tennessee is just kind of like going through the motions on recruiting a kid from Tennessee who's good enough to play for them, good enough to win for them. All of a sudden, the live period happens. He plays against another really good team that other people are there to see. He plays well. Word of mouth starts getting around. All of a sudden, one team offers And then suddenly like 10 people offer in 2 days. It's like, where were you guys 6 months ago? Where were you guys 2 years ago? So Trey Thompson now all of a sudden, it's not necessarily rankings, but it's offers.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of combine those two things in one. But like, where was Kansas last year? And where was UConn last year? Where was Tennessee last year?
Yeah.
Like, I think word gets out, this kid's about to commit to Purdue, and perhaps some people offer him just to try to slow him down a little bit, just to try to take a longer offer. I still think Purdue's going to get the kid. There was always going to be a process involved with this, but this is what I'm using to put a face on how the process has changed. It's some of these schools are going to kind of just jump in before a kid's senior year, whereas 5 years ago they would have been dedicating time to high school, watching high school kids earlier. And I think a lot of the kids that gravitate toward are not going to be people they actually go out in the fall and watch. It's going to be, okay, who does this kid have offers from? Where is this kid ranked? And they're going to mess it all up. They're going to recruit kids that don't fit them. They're going to recruit guys that they don't know. And what will end up happening is those dudes are going to end up in the portal after a year. And it's kind of what this has all become. It's mistakes get erased by the portal. I think you see it in football every year. You sign 50 kids, 10 of them you just get rid of a year later, and it's like a disinfectant for all your recruiting mistakes nowadays. It sucks for the players because those who don't value fit and those who don't know the coaches recruiting them, I'm going to use Trey Thompson as the face of this. But if Trey Thompson goes somewhere that's recruited him for like 3 or 4 weeks, he's turning down a great situation to go to something he doesn't know. And that would be really unfortunate if things don't work out. And I'm not saying that as like looking at it partisan to Purdue or whatever, but it's just the reality of it. It's been the reality of it for years with Purdue, where they're way out in front of people, but they could get friend zoned on guys like this when the bigger name with more money shows up. That's what I'm saying before about how I think Purdue's cool enough now. I think they've got enough of a name brand. The money piece of it's there. The opportunity piece of it's still going to be there because you're not to a point where you're just bringing in ready-made rosters every single year to just roll out there like Kansas historically has and North Carolina and Duke historically have. So I think this is all flattening out. And there's some real treachery here for players in terms of it's much the same. Like when we were talking about the much ado about nothing with Braden Smith a few months ago, I was talking about how, okay, if your legacy is Purdue right now, you've got an unbelievable situation at Purdue. You're making a lot of money. But if you just want to go play at Kansas because they're Kansas, or Kentucky because they're Kentucky, or Michigan because they've allotted a couple $1 million to pay you to try to tamper with Purdue's guys, they were the one, by the way. Look at what you're putting at risk here. You're putting your legacy at risk. You're putting winning at risk. You're putting a potential Final Four here this year at risk. You're putting your continuity and chemistry with a team you like, teammates you've played with at risk. That's on a I don't know if it's micro or macro. I can never keep those straight. But on a micro/macro level, recruits can look at this the same way and say, okay, and I'm using Trey Thompson as an example here, not because I'm advocating for him to come to Purdue. I would never do that. But just putting a face on it. Okay, you know these coaches. You've been here. You have a good enough relationship with Matt Painter to where you can give him hell about being a Cubs fan. They have a plan for you. You know their depth chart. You've seen what they're planning for you as a freshman. They put the time into you. They know your family. You've got a great relationship with them. All of that stuff. You put that at risk all of a sudden. Now suddenly, just because Connecticut's recruiting you, I'm going to jump on the first plane to go visit Connecticut and then go there just because they're Connecticut. That's pretty dangerous. But that kind of thing's always been dangerous for recruits. But they still jumped at the biggest name quite a bit. but I think Purdue is now one of those names. It's not Duke, it's not North Carolina, but it is as close to the next best thing as I think you're going to get. And the money piece of it is really important. Purdue is really invested here, and the opportunity and the NIL stuff goes hand in hand. Purdue has shown that if you get to the level that, Matt Painter and, Paul Lusk and PJ Thompson and Brandon Brantley think you can get to, the reason they're recruiting you, if you get to that level, is it like Zach Edey and Braden Smith did, and, Jaden Ivey would have, had he cared at all about NIL at the time. He knew his money was coming, so he didn't really focus on that stuff the way a lot of guys would have, which is a credit to him. I think that Purdue has shown that, hey, Zach Edey was a millionaire before he even got to the NBA. Braden Smith's going to be a millionaire before he gets his shot at the NBA. Fletcher Lawyer is going to do really well for himself. Trey Kaufman-Wren is going to do really, really well for himself. And I think it's all right there for guys. It's, do you put that great situation at risk just to run to the biggest name possible? I think those days are numbered, if not over.
Yeah, it's going to be, and we'll work to Purdue's advantage.
I talk way too much.
But I did want to, I assume you stayed up, though I don't know. Did you stay up late last night to watch the end of the NBA? And just, have you ever seen anything like what the Pacers have done here of late? We're doing a little bit off topic, but it is Indiana.
No, you do not miss the end of a Pacers game these days. I'm a Pacers fan now. They're fun.
How can you not be? Yeah.
They're fun to watch. And, I would have been a Pacers fan probably years ago because I need an NBA team. But I can never watch them on TV. And I really don't go to sporting events for fun anymore.
Yeah.
But I wish, I'm an hour and a half away. I wish the Pacers were more accessible to me on television. So, but getting to watch them in the playoffs is a blast, man.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon because they're good. I'm jumping on the bandwagon because they're fun and because I'm actually getting to watch them right now. I watch a ton of NBA. I have the NBA on whenever college basketball's not on, whenever the Yankees aren't on, things like that. But the Pacers are never in the mix, which is hopefully going to change next year now that they've got a little bit more national cachet, now that Tyrese Haliburton's branded as a star, now that the TV deal has changed. But the Pacers are great and set up to succeed for a while here. I mean, they've made some unbelievable front office moves. Tyrese Haliburton's going to be here for a decade. I'd have to think he's not that guy who's going to want out of here. Want out of a small market. I think those days are numbered in places like Oklahoma City and Indiana. It's just a matter of, getting everybody paid when the time comes. And hopefully the Pacers can, swing that to keep this team together. But they don't really, I don't know if they've got that second salary that's going to kill them or that third salary that's going to kill them when the time comes. The reason this team's good is not just Tyrese Haliburton. The Pascal Siakam trade was huge, a master stroke, and just the Toronto Raptors just giving it away, just the same way Sacramento inexplicably trades Tyrese Haliburton. Point guards are like franchise quarterbacks in the NBA. You get them and you have them for a decade, you're good. Put pieces around them, great. How the Sacramento Kings got hoodwinked into trading Tyrese Haliburton. All due respect to Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah.
That is the reason the Sacramento Kings suck forever. That is the reason that they're always aspiring to the permanent middle at best. But the Pacers stealing Tyrese Haliburton from the Kings and stealing Pascal Siakam from the Raptors, and then, filling in the Obi Toppins and the Nemharts and I shouldn't disrespect Miles Turner either. He
had big shots last night.
He's a big 3-level guy as well. But I think they could get more physical. But they got to the finals with what they have, and I don't think they're going to beat the Thunder. But you get to the offseason, you go get a physical backup 5, and you might be right back here. Jason Tatum's out next year. The Knicks are going to be in flux a bit. The Cavs might have hit their ceiling somehow already, and they won't be able to pay all those guys long term probably. So the Pacers are set up here, to succeed for quite a while. It's going to be a fun run.
Yeah. Did you see Tyrese Haliburton play in AAU back in the day? Did you ever run across him? Yeah.
I don't think he played name brand grassroots. I might have seen him somewhere, but it wouldn't have been a circuit team. Which this goes to show you that recruiting rankings. We sit here and all the best players are on EYBL and Adidas' circuit and a few on Under Armour, but guys, Tyrese Haliburton was an off-brand guy. I don't know where he was ranked out of high school. I haven't gone back and looked, but Chet Holmgren was a name.
Yeah,
but he played on Under Armour for something called Grassroots Sizzle. He was ranked well when all was said and done, but there's players everywhere, man. I don't know where Shea played. I can't remember what team he played for. Went to Kentucky. He obviously he wasn't an unknown by any means, but he probably came into the NBA as a little bit of an unknown. But it's a funny game, man. There's players everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of Canadians. Now we fully understand why the Canadian national team is pretty darn good, obviously.
Well, when you look at Canada, the Nemharts, Shea, Zach Edey.
Yeah.
There's lots of players. Tristan Thompson, I think, came from Canada. There's a lot of guys up there, man. And I think now I inappropriately call it the human trafficking game in basketball. I think there's enough connects now where those guys have people bringing them to the U.S., pushing them on college coaches, exposing them to college coaches. The grassroots AAU game, the NBA machine has expanded to a great extent into Canada. So I think just like the NBA has kind of become a global game, so is basketball recruiting.
Yeah.
And by extension, so has the NBA draft. And these guys are coming from everywhere. The college basketball recruiting machine is going to Eastern Europe and Europe way more now. And I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce some of these names, spell them, unfortunately, as Europe becomes more and more of a thing. We'll see it with Illinois this year.
Yeah.
We'll see it eventually with Purdue, with Europeans, not Israel. I'm not calling Israel Europe. It might be the continent, but it is the continent, right? Yeah.
No, it's Asia, right? Doesn't it stop in Turkey and up through the Ural Mountains? I don't know. That's gonna be a question we'll have to find out.
What? I think that I've really, really exposed myself as a meathead on this.
No, because your intellectual ability makes me wonder, but I think Israel is definitely Asia, but I don't know for sure. So I know one thing. Somebody's going to comment about that.
Well, it's not that far from Africa either. I know it's not Africa.
No, it's not. Egypt is Africa. And by the way, just because I can
definitely not Australia, right?
No, it's not Australia.
Okay, so we can,
but it is.
We can rule out South America, we can rule out Australia, and we can rule out North America.
And with ChatGPT as my friend, it is West Asia. So just so you know, if it's correct.
West Asia. Well, okay. Well, I don't think people think of Asia.
No, I'm with you.
Think of Asia when they think of Israel, so I think we're just going to say Israel. We're going to leave the continent out.
I think you're good. I think
the mistake I made was bringing continents into this conversation in the first place. So.
Geography, which I got a C- in that, so I think that's right. And you wrote about some other folks in boiling over with respect to other Europeans that Purdue will be going after that'll be a topic for discussion down the road, I'm sure. So, Brian, I'm going to let you get back to basketball here, and we appreciate our geography discussion. I know some of our folks will be commenting on what we said, but that's okay because that's part of the deal. So, thanks again, Brian. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks again to the Union Club Hotel. I'm going to remove you, by the way. You're now getting removed, so be ready. Okay, you're goodbye. Say goodbye. Bye. There you go. Want to thank, though, for goldenblack.com Saturday Simulcast, of course, the Union Club Hotel. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And, of course, you can leave a positive review, as Brian always says. If you don't want to leave a positive review, then you can keep it to yourself. But check us out also for our Golden Black radio listeners. You can do that also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And stay tuned for Tuesday because our typical Tuesday show, Golden Black Radio, hosted by Derek Schultz. If you like Saturdays, goldenblack.com Saturday Simulcast, you'll like Golden Black Radio on Tuesdays. And also a reminder, too, you can use promo code PU1 at checkout when purchasing a monthly subscription to goldenblack.com and to get 2 months for $1. Boy, I don't like these summer colds, that's for sure. But subscribe to goldenblack.com and YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And a reminder, too, we thank you for taking the time to watch and or listen. Have a great rest of your not quite summer, late spring weekend as we get into June. And we'll have more next week on our Saturday Simulcast.